Hello, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. Sorry about this slight delay. We had a little technical problem. Um, so, welcome to this Google Hangout. My name is Sebastien Turbot. I am the Curator and Director of Content for WISE, the World Innovation Summit for Education, an initiative of Curator Foundation. I have the honor today of facilitating this Google Hangout hosted by Ashoka and LEGO Foundation. In the lead up of the 2015 LEGO Foundation Ideas Conference, which will be held in Denmark in this coming April. Last year, these two organizations launched the Reimagine Learning Challenge. The objective of this challenge was to identify pioneering and innovative projects and initiatives demonstrating the power of learning through play. The wider objective of this challenge, of course, is to demonstrate that in a world where children and young people absolutely need to develop better skills of creativity, problem solving, teamwork, empathy, play is a great way of learning these skills. And so we'll have two questions today for our guests, which I will introduce shortly after. It's what makes playful learning work? Why and how is it effective? The second question we'd like to look at is the resistance that still exists today amongst many on learning through play. Some see it as frivolous and not a true learning experience. So we'll be discussing for about 30-45 minutes, and I have the pleasure of introducing two of the pioneers of the Reimagine Learning Challenge. First of all, Adina and Ion, you represent ikedoo, which is an experiential learning program for children between the ages of 3 and 12 in Bucharest, Romania. If I understand correctly, you teach courses like geometry with hands-on activities to develop motor skills, enhance cognitive abilities, and encourage creative problem solving. And all this using very simple tools such as wood, screws, and pipes. I'd also like to welcome Brett Hart. You are a sailing master and boat builder, and you are also the executive director of the Philadelphia Wooden Boat Factory. Your organization was founded in 1996, and you provide after-school and summer programs for students in Philadelphia's low-income communities. You encourage preteens and teenagers to build boats for competitive sailing, but also to help them build character, competence, and confidence. For all of us joining us online, please share your questions through Twitter using the hashtag #PlayToLearn. Play, then 2 as in the number 2, and then learn. And so, Adina, Ion, could you tell us a bit more about ikedoo and what led you to starting the project? What challenge, what problem did you identify, and why do you think play is a good way of addressing this problem?
Hi, I'm Adina, and I'm a co-founder at ikedoo. And me and Ion, we are architects, and we started doing this 4 years ago. Well, Ion was the first to start this, so I will let him tell the story of how it began.
Because I remember a question about educational background. The only educational background we had was the fact that for 6 years I have been a university assisting teacher, well, also a practicing architect. And at some point, me and a friend of mine, Vlad, who was a real estate developer at that point, we realized that we were not very much in love with what we were doing, and we wanted to do something else, something radically new. And we thought at that point that it would be nice to try and find a way to teach children about constructions by doing very realistic building kit, which we actually did. And then, well, by taking it to the children and letting them play with it, we discovered that it was a very good learning tool, not only for architecture ideas, but also for other types of information such as geometry, mathematics, teamwork, I don't know, history and such. Because the information that we were giving them was, we were trying to introduce it in the playful activities and in the design of the materials themselves. And as time went by, we started developing around this concept of building and learning a whole set of activities, of learning activities, not only for children from 6 to 12, but also for children to 3 to 6 years old. And then we did some summer camps and a lot of do-it-yourself activities, which were focused for children here in Bucharest, but as well we started thinking about children in underprivileged communities. And in a way, we kind of organically grew to the point where we are right now.
Is your program mostly an in-school program or an after-school program?
It's mostly after school, but we are trying, like for instance with the geometry class, to slowly slide into the academic, let's say, in the school universe as well, in the academic program as well.
Okay, and so could you tell us a bit more on how concretely your courses work? Do you bring in teachers, facilitators? What type of actual stuff do the children? What's the outcome you're trying to achieve?
Okay, so first it was us who were doing the activities, but then as things got more serious, we started getting help from let's say professional facilitators, with the help of which we structured in a more professional manner, let's say, our curricula. The point is that okay, what we are trying to do is to give children a vast set of information by using materials that have the information built inside them, and in the way that the materials get to be assembled together. Like for instance, when we said that we built a house for children, we built a house for children which is as big as they are. I mean, it's a size in which they can easily fit in. It has pillars and beams and foundations and bricks and a roof with shingles on it. And it has very specific dimensions. It's a modular kit. You can build cubes which have dimensions centered around the dimension of 1 meter and proportions of it. So in a way, they also learn about space and area and lengths in a very hands-on way. And everything has to be done or is conceived in such a way that it involves always teamwork and a spirit of, let's say, the progress that they are doing in these activities is always measured by them. They are the ones who are evaluating their progress based on some, let's say, items that we give them as a hint.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll come back to you later. I have some follow-up questions, but Brett, could we hear from you and the Philadelphia Wooden Boat Factory? What's your story and what's the story behind your project?
Sure. So Wooden Boat Factory, we're in Philadelphia, and we are building traditional wooden boats with high school apprentices, literally starting with lumber, very aromatic materials like cedar and locust and oak and wood that still has the bark on it, and we're engaging these young people to build traditional wooden boats, particularly sailing vessels that then in the summer we're out on the water for 6 weeks in the middle of summer, but also in the spring and the fall as well, sailing these boats in a competitive sailing program, but also just doing a lot of exploring. We explore on the Delaware River. We head up north to the headwaters and row down the river in some of our boats. And really what we use is we use these boats and we use these boat building programs as a foundation for us to really establish connection with young people. And that connection runs pretty deep and allows the students to take some risk, to try some things out, to fail, to iterate, you know, through these processes that we get to know them very well. Obviously, they're with us for I think about 470 hours a year is the program offering. The average student is participating about 350 of those 470 hours. So we're you know, we're traveling, we're playing together, we're working together, and for me, this kind of the foundation. Okay, so I grew up about 2 blocks from where our shop is. It's a really, it's a neighborhood. It's a post-industrial neighborhood. Industry has moved overseas. It's hurting in a lot of ways. Our school districts are in crisis financially, but also they're only graduating on time about half of the population. My first word, surprisingly, or maybe not surprisingly, was boat. And I have a really deep-seated love of boats and maritime arts. However, I also had a very non-positive high school experience. And so it wasn't until that I started apprenticing as a wooden boat builder in Maine when I was, say, 18 or 19 years old, that I really fell in love with something that I connected to, that I then wanted to learn everything I could about. I found myself at sea a couple years later teaching myself trigonometry so that I could navigate by the stars, taking classes in biology so I'd understand the biology, the wood technology. And just a brief segue into how Wooden Boat Factory came to be and the program that we're doing. So I did not have a love for working with young people. That was not where I was. I was 18, 19, 20 years old. I was traveling on boats. And I got connected to the Wooden Boat Factory, which is a daytime program. And the founder of the organization needed my help with working with some kids one afternoon. And I went into the classroom with him. He had 30 kids, and they're running around the shop, and they're digging chisels into benches, and you know, just going bananas. And the teacher who had brought these 30 kids, it was their first time in the shop. The teacher who had brought these kids it was a tense moment. You know, she wanted to take control of the classroom. And Jeff was very stoic, and he stood there and watched these kids running around experimenting and playing. And the teacher finally came up and said, you know, we can start. And he said, in a very calm voice, I know. And my toes are curling at this whole moment, waiting to see where this was going to go. And I'm an uninitiated educator at this point. I'm kind of like, I was a boat builder, but what am I doing in this classroom? Finally, a young person comes up to Jeff and looks up at him and says, can we start? And Jeff says, sure, you know what to do. And the kid turned around and he picked up his wood, he started working on the boat, brought his friends in, and in that moment that was tense, and I think this is a little bit what we're going to talk about today, in that moment that was tense because the teacher wanted control, Jeff turned it around and made this into something powerful, and that changed the trajectory of my life, and 10 years later I moved back from California and took over as the executive director of the Wooden Boat Factory.
I guess I have a question for both organizations, but I'll start with you, Brett. Is both of your programs seems to be after-school programs. For you, would it be fair to say that the skills you're trying to promote through your programs are skills that are not provided by or not at the heart of the learning process within more formal learning systems? Brett?
Yes, Sebastian, you kind of broke up there a little bit, but I think I got the crux of your question. So, so in our public schools, education and the arts and to a great extent, physical play, phys ed have kind of been slowly, if not completely abruptly, being removed from the curriculum. So yes, I mean, obviously, what we're doing is augmenting in a lot of ways what the kids are getting through their public education day. Remember, these kids are going to school at 7 in the morning. They're showing up at our shop at 3:30 in the afternoon. That's a really remarkable commitment, because then they're then with us till 7 p.m. So yeah, what we're looking to do really through playing with young people in this shop, we think of the vulnerability of being in the moment, and being very present in the moment. And this is kind of similar to, say, meditation, which allows you to kind of close off the chatter that prevents you from being able to focus on what's in front of you. So the students that we're working with are experiencing a lot of stress in their lives, a lot of toxic stress, which is preventing them from being able to be present in that moment. And I think what's important about our program and what we're doing, and play in general, is that when you can take play and kind of infuse competency building and rigor in play, then you have something that's really powerful. And I think that's what we're trying to do at the shop.
And I think who said this? That to be creative, you have to be very serious about being creative. Adina, Eon, Adina, Eon, what about you? What about your context of Romania, and how you see your program complementing or even being at the origin of encouraging these skills compared to the formal school system?
Okay, first of all, I would say that the Romanian educational ecosystem has been in great turmoil for the last 25 years due to the fact that we we changed our, let's say, political system. And it has been a constant struggle between keeping it as it was before and I don't know, trying to find different alternatives to it. Mostly, I would say that until now, it's the keeping it as before, which is winning. Mostly because there was this idea that it produced a lot of performance in terms of school results. Now, the fact is that this is something which I can say from my own experience is very uninspiring for a child, unless you have a very specific target, say you want to be an ace at maths or whatever. It's, well, I would say that it has been in conflict with the realities of society as it is right now. What we are trying to do, or at least what we are trying to do with our program, is first of all, I would say we are trying to bring stuff which they are not able to do in school, stuff that inspires them and that I think creates that state of flow Brett was talking earlier. I recognize it as flow. This idea of you just do what you want to do and you forget about everything else, about being tired, about being I don't know, having other issues. You're there. So this is one thing we are trying to create in their experience. We are trying to give them concrete experiences as opposed to this sort of passive way of learning which school is enforcing upon them in a way. And also we are trying to find a balance because I like very much this idea that Brett was talking earlier, the fact that even though the activities of the children seem chaotic, they were there for a purpose. It was this constant iteration and search and humming, which is the foundation of learning. It's something we mostly forget, that play is the main mechanism of learning in nature. It's the way nature learns how to, how to evolve and so on. So I think in this respect also we are trying to find this fine line in which we tend not to intervene too much, to be too much in control, and let them explore their possibilities by themselves, just nudging them to give them a sort of structure to what they are doing. And the final thing I would like to say is that this is something which has also helped us a lot. This fact that we are not in the school system helps us fly below the radar and makes us more agile in exploring and trying new stuff and iterating and so on.
Yeah, I gotta agree with that 100%.
Okay, thank you, Ian. Yeah, please, Brett, go ahead.
No, I was just saying I agree with that 150%. I mean, I think being outside of systems, being in a small organization like our own, we're able to really experiment and push the envelope in ways that classic education might not be able to evolve quite as quickly. So yes, I agree with that. Yeah, fully.
Okay, but I guess the question I have for you is, and as Jan was saying, he was saying it's good for us to be under the radar. I could turn that around and ask you, why wouldn't you want to be on the radar? And this leads to our question of resistance. In both your contexts, whether it be in Philadelphia or in Romania, do you still feel that today, in 2015, there is resistance, there are doubts about learning through play? And if so, who are those that are the most resistant? Is it the administration? Is it teachers? Is it parents? Is it maybe the young ones themselves who see play as something you do at home but not serious enough, or something that won't help them achieve in life? Brett,
Yeah.
I have you on screen. Go ahead.
Yes, absolutely. I'm sorry, for me?
No, sorry, please.
Okay, so absolutely, not under the radar, but that's not necessarily where we are, nor is it our goal. We obviously we want to be a part, and we are a part of global communities like Ashoka and some other communities that are here locally in the city and nationally. But I guess what I was suggesting was we don't have the top-down kind of restrictive or restrictions on how we learn from what works and what doesn't, so we can evolve quickly. We can see what works, we can talk, I can have a conversation with you and be inspired by the things you say, and I can take that to work today and move with it. So you know, play and people's perception, I can't promise that I have my finger on the complete pulse globally, what perceptions are about play. I will say I talk to our students, for example, and you know, I ask them what play means to them, and they say things like, well, it's humor, it's laughter, it's fun, it's being lost in the moment. You know, and if I knocked on my next door neighbor's door and I asked him the same question, the answer I might get I'm you know, projecting here, might be have something to do with play as it related to what we did when we were very young, playing pretend, playing cowboy, etc. And I don't know, I will say that I don't know that I necessarily feel that there is any negative connotation from others towards play. However, I think the flip to that is that they are not seeing the potential that lies therein. So again, as I talked about earlier, the ability, so I like to play basketball, right? And I think about our students. Our students, many of them are very talented at basketball, yet struggle with academics in school, okay? And part of what I believe is going on there is that when they are playing basketball, they are lost in the enjoyment and the love of the moment. So when I talked about adding the rigor and adding the competency to play, they are doing that in basketball. We are doing that in the boat shop. So I don't know that there's a negative, I don't know that people would say, oh, play is bad. I just don't know that they would see it for the opportunity that it is. which is very powerful. And so what I think what Ashoka is doing, what LEGO is doing here through this Reimagined Learning Challenge that we've been a part of is creating communities that are launching these ideas into the ether. Because all these ideas, and there's many ways that I could expand on, and you know, maybe I won't take up all the airtime here, but that you know, the things that we have in our program are not our genius. We're grabbing a lot of stuff here and there. We're saying, wow, that works, let's try it out, and this didn't work, and that did, and we can evolve with that kind of process. And it's the same with play. I think these ideas, we launch them into the ether, and then we can get a global conversation where people are appreciating these ideas. I have some ideas how we can do that on a granular level as well, but I'll save that for a little bit later.
Okay, if we have time, I might have a bit of role play for you, Brett. But Adina, Ian, how do you react to this question of whether or not there is resistance to learning through play? Is it just out of, as Brett was saying, kind of ignorance of the potential that lies in play? So is it resistance? Is it ignorance? Is it a bit of both? And who is this coming from?
Okay, in Romania there is a big difference, or it is some difference between the private system and the public system, school system. In the private school system, there is more easy to enter. So this course of workshop of hours of geometry, we do it for some private schools. They are more open to this idea of playing or of children making their own educational material and open to new ideas. For the public educational system, it's very difficult. The resistance is from teachers and from educators, directors of schools, like everybody except for the children. But it's very hard to reach the children without passing from government and teachers and so on. But there are also schools that we managed to speak with some of them that are open, more open than others, and they say they would like to try some activities with us. So there is some hope, I think. If you go from door to door, from school to school, there will be some that will accept you, and maybe when they will see that this program works in some schools, others will open their doors too. And I would like to mention also we have this program for kindergartens, and there for small children, they're more open. Also the private schools, they rely more to this theory of children must play so he can learn and be more creative than school. So I believe that if we start in kindergartens, it will be much easier in the future to go to schools and maybe to high schools and so on. If you start from the bottom, I don't know.
Yeah. And also there is one more thing I would like to add. It's the issue of control. I'm getting back to that idea. The fact that, and this involves also the parents, schools want control and they want quantities, quantifiable results. Parents are used to that also because they know that these results are the ones that allow access to different levels of whatever, of the future of their children. So in a way, this is another thing. The fact that play, however structured it is, does not give them this notion of controllability and of being quantifiable in terms of results. I mean, you cannot put a grade on the way you are playing or something like this. It would be absolutely preposterous, I think. And also, you cannot. It's difficult to see to say, look, my kid has been playing for 3 hours and now his brain is like 1 inch larger or something like this. I'm making fun a bit, but this is the reality in the end. Parents sometimes tend to forget what they were thinking when they were children, because I can completely understand that the future of their children is on the line, and teachers have the same responsibility as well. So yeah, I think that this idea that we should work ourselves from kindergarten up, in a way, would be a way of educating and accustoming the system and the parents with this concept.
Okay, thank you, Ian. Before I take a first question from Twitter, Brett, do you want to comment on this question of the impact, the famous measuring the learning outcomes of play, and the question of control and assessment?
Sure. Yeah. It would be really awesome if we could see that our brains were an inch bigger. So while we might not be able to measure how well people are playing, I think we can look at kind of longitudinal outcomes. And this is a little bit of a murky area. This falls in line with some of the other projects we're involved in. That we have a group that we're working with in Detroit that's kind of looking at our best practices. They're looking at us and a couple other organizations to try to figure out how is it that we're affecting the results we're having. They're not through play, but more social and emotional learning. And again, this is a very murky area because it's difficult. People come to these skills at different paces, and it's also very difficult to quantify. Have you helped the young person develop your resilience? But there are people out there who are smarter than me who are, essentially creating some think tanks that are looking at our work and trying to extrapolate what is working out of it so that it can be held up as a best practice, so that we can say quantitatively, through pre and post biometric survey, through looking at behaviors versus students' beliefs, and then trying to extrapolate that all and turn it into something that is compelling, so that we can then take that and then broadcast this and say, you know what? Well, we can't measure whether your brain got an inch bigger. We can say that over time, longitudinally, this has meaning and this has power. From my perspective, I think that's something that is powerful in a way that we could look at this.
Okay, thank you, Brett. I'll take the two first questions, and then I'll kind of mix these two questions together. One is, how could we foster within classrooms, so this time I'm talking specifically within the formal school setting, how can we foster a culture of play? And the second question is, how do we do that given that we often have classroom sizes of maybe 30 to 40 students? The examples you were giving us, it's, from what I hear, small groups, kind of one-to-one or even individual groups. How do you foster play in an environment where you have 30 to 40 young children or young teenagers? And this is open to any of you. Ian, maybe? I know it's a tough question.
It's a very tough question because we are usually working with groups of, let's say, 8 to 10 children, due to the fact that we are trying to give as rich an experience as possible for them. But I think that the way I would think about doing it would be through teachers, I think, by teaching them new methods of working with children, because I would say that of course there is the curricula, but then again, in Romania, at least in Romania, I would say there is the fact that the school in which teachers are formed is highly outdated, and it has a very bad selection system. Perhaps it's also due to the fact that the wages are very low. I don't know, but the fact is that there is not enough screening within this selection when they are choosing future teachers. So I would think that our first contribution to the change of the system would be this idea of sharing with them what we have learned about how to work with children and how to engage them in a playful manner. Yeah, that would be the way I would start, and then also in parallel by doing what we are doing right now. So in a way, trying to converge the two directions at some point. But I would start with the teachers, I think.
Okay, so for you, Ian, it's about rethinking teacher training and encouraging them to develop play-based pedagogies in their classroom.
Yeah.
What would be your question?
Did you address something to me? Because you just broke up there for a second.
Yes, I was saying, Ian was saying that for him, the way to foster a culture of play, especially in big-sized classrooms, would be to mostly work through teachers and their training. What would be your take on this question?
Great. Sebastien, you only seem to break up when you're asking me something. It's terrible irony. So I'm not a classroom educator. I'll preface this by saying that, and I have the luxury of not being one. Things that come to mind, however, is the willingness or openness to circumvent your agenda as an educator. So to look for opportunities for allowing young people to explore. So by way of example, I was working with a group of young students who had just come into the shop for the first time, and I had an agenda. There was the things that I needed to fill their glass with in terms of their education for the day. And in a moment, I saw a young person's eyes just glance away across the shop. And remember, again, his first time in the shop, and it was about 10 or 12 of them. And I realized right away that I had to stop, and so I put the moment on pause, and I said, you know what, let's just take a break for a minute. So I sat down on the bench and allowed the students to start pulling some wood out of the cabinet, out of the wood pile, and can we try this saw out? Sure, as long as it was safe. And they spent the next 3 hours experimenting, learning, and playing on their own. So again, I'm not a classroom educator, and I don't have the onus of having to teach to a curriculum that has to move to we have standardized testing here that is just outrageous, and I don't know that we're going to change that anytime soon. It's not going to happen overnight, certainly. But again, getting these ideas out to so that somebody remembers, hey, let's allow this young person the freedom to explore, to play, and my agenda can take a back seat. If we're thinking that way, I think that we're taking the right steps at the very least.
Okay, thank you for that. I guess another question on the fact that for many people, think, okay, small children playing seems kind of logical. Teenagers, why not? Do you think what you're trying to achieve through your projects could also apply to adult learners as they try to develop new skills in their workplace, as they try to retrain themselves for a new sector or a new skill set? So basically, is play for children? Is learning through play for children, or is learning through play recommendable as well for adults?
Shall I start this one?
Yes.
Okay. So in our program, for example, we're working with an older set, the 16 to 18. I have to say that I think that the way we're engaging in our shop is play for adults. I'm building my own boat on the weekends, and I get lost in my shop for hours, and it's so enjoyable, and yet smoke is coming out of my ears because it's hard. It's really hard. And so you know, I certainly don't see play as something that has a cap on it that's done for young people. It's not, you know. I think that it again it's all the things that our students said it was. It's when you're having fun. It's when you're you know, lost in the moment. And if it's powerful for me, if it's powerful for our students, I can't see why it wouldn't be powerful for everyone. And so your question, can you expand one last time, was how does it, you were saying in the workforce, if you want to expand
Well,
on that.
basically, you know, let's say I'm a big corporation. I'm a car maker.
Okay.
Would you recommend that I try to develop play-based pedagogies in my trainings?
You know, I think if it was me, absolutely. 150%. That's the company that I'd want to run. You know, and I'm not too embarrassed to say that I come across, you know, the business self-help books from time to time, and they're always spouting the innovation of groups that, you know, have you know, keep the crayons in the lobby, in the waiting room while you're waiting for your meeting, and the pads all over the place, and these seem to be the companies that they're always spouting these are the innovators in the world. So if it's my company, 150%, absolutely. I mean, we are at Wood and Bow Factory, and this is a little bit tangential, but we are very collaborative in how we work. We don't have individual offices. We have a big office space that we work together. And I think that there's a lot of power in having people that are inspired, of course, right? And we're inspired to work together, and it feels like play. So yeah, that's how I'd run my company. That's how I do run my company. So.
Okay. Ian, Adina, do you want to comment on this question of learning through play in adults?
Yes, actually, we've done a couple of workshops for corporations, as you said, for grown-ups, and for 100 of grown-ups once. They had to build a chain reaction mechanism, and at first it was very, very difficult because they have forgotten how to play, and they were scared to embarrass themselves, and they were all about laughing and didn't want to respect the rules, and so on and so forth. But after a while, after we said, but we have to do it, it's fun, and they started doing the activity, and they say, oh, this is really fun, and they played the game eventually, and afterwards they even said that, oh my God, I haven't had this much fun for years since I was a child, and I even learned about teamwork. It was an workshop about leadership, and I said this is something we can do. We have learned something from this activity. They were surprised, actually.
We also did one in which they built a huge rocket out of plastic tubes. But the point is that, yeah, we really believe that grown-ups can learn. It's something
if they want to.
If they want to, yeah, exactly. If they remember how to. But the fact is that instinctively at some point they will remember how to, because we really do believe that playing is an inbuilt program to learn that humans have. And in the end, this is how we started what we started doing. We were playing, we were remembering how to be children, and we were doing stuff for children by remembering that. So we truly believe that this is a very important learning tool at any age. I think that even if when you're old, I mean I've seen, we have some friends who are very inspiring and who have kept young and interested because they have this playful side to themselves.
Yes, and I would like to add only one thing. There is also the case when grown-ups can learn alongside and play and learn alongside the children. That is a good method for them to remember how it was to be a child and to play and to be more open to learning and not being so scared of being embarrassed or something else.
This is something which happens spontaneously at our activities center. When they come to pick up their children, a lot of them go inside the activity space and they see what they are doing and they start looking around and they start playing with the children, and it's quite fun to see. I mean, it's yeah.
Yeah, so you see a big potential in intergenerational learning between adults and children.
Yeah.
Yes.
This is a great conversation, but the problem is the time is moving fast, so it's already time for us to conclude, at least for today. I think we've heard some really interesting things, about teamwork, about establishing connections, taking risks, about iteration, being lost in the moment, having fume coming out of your ears, play as a way of helping you taking the lead of your learning, about some that have forgotten how to play as well. So there's work there. Before we close, would either of you have any very short kind of concluding comment or remark they'd like to make to our listeners?
Sure. I mean, even just to piggyback on it's Adina, I believe, was just saying about about working with adults, and we have a saying around the shop is imagination plus visualization equal manifestation, and so that's where we're centered. The ability to imagine, to visualize, to conceptualize, and all those things happen when you are lost in your work, when you're in love with what you're doing, when you're having a good time, and all the stuff that's around you just is just flying on by, and you're focused on what's in front of you. And so that's where we're at with our students every night. We tell our students every night, the next 3 hours are for you. Dive in, and it's repeated every day. Dive in for these 3 hours for you. So. Thank you for that,
Beth. Adina, Ian, any concluding comments on your part?
Yeah, I'm very happy that this kinds of discussions happen, because I get to meet people like Brett and you guys from Ashoka and from LEGO Foundation, and even though it's difficult to see the quantifiable results, I feel that when you see a lot of people moving in the same direction, you get that feeling that you already knew that you are doing something right. And I think this is the most important thing right now for us.
Yes, I couldn't agree more. I like to add just one thing about the parents, that play to learn is not only about schools and kindergartens or institutional learning. It's about playing at home with parents and families and so on. I think that is an environment that should develop this kind of learning. So yes.
Good points. If parents spent more time playing with their children already, it would make a big difference. I definitely agree. On this note, I'd like to thank all three of you. I'd like to thank Ashoka and LEGO Foundation for hosting the conversation. And of course, I'd like to thank all of you who have been following us online. And hope we can meet again soon to continue this fascinating conversation. Okay, on this note, goodbye.